All right, what's up, you little donut hole lickers? How y'all doing? Welcome back to Come On Over, where Brandon and Nico just talk about, well, just about anything.
Donut hole liquor. Goodness gracious.
Yep.
I
And
love it.
also could be donut hole liquor or liqueur, which
Ooh,
might be kind of tasty.
it's
Tis the
probably a thing.
season, you know.
It is the season for donut hole liquors.
That actually could be like that could be our if we like start doing merch. We could
Oh, dude.
we could start doing like well first shirts with like different phrases that we might throughout here during the episodes, but we could also do like a little line of liqueur and have like donut hole flavored whatever.
Oh my god. That would be so good, dude.
Yeah,
That would be so good.
whiskey
Uh,
business and just start doing like random ass.
hell yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Fuck yeah. Merch will be available at some point.
Oh yeah.
Let us know if you want it. Get your very own donut hole liqueur shirt. But yeah, man. How's everything going? How are you?
Doing good. Actually, I was just yesterday was Nazi's grandpa's birthday. He turned 80 years old. That's eight
Damn.
zero, so he is an adult. And that was that was nice. Well, nice as an 80-year old's birthday can be. And that was just a day after your birthday, actually, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
man.
so I mean, let me break down how this birthday went, and then maybe you can share how your birthday went, and that actually might be something to talk about.
Yeah.
So it being an 80-year-old man's birthday, um, it was just having lunch.
Really?
It was just basically getting the family together, you know, not these aunt and mom as well, and all that cousins, and then just wanting to be with his family and paying for a very expensive lunch, probably around upwards of 700 uh euros, so
Damn.
around the same in dollars. um Obviously there was some wine, and everybody had their own nice, it's a nice restaurant, it's an upper,
Yeah.
but yeah, and actually it got me thinking, like when you get that to that age, I guess that's really all you want, is to be there with your family. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess that's
Uh,
mainly, and that got me thinking like how I feel now you know, when I have birthdays, and so I guess since yours was just a couple days ago, or yeah, just the other day, how did you feel when you turned 30,
oh man.
or just not because of the age you turned, but like how did you feel,
hmm
having to celebrate or not another birthday? How was that?
So, celebrating birthdays, okay? Like for me, there's so much pressure
Mm.
on your birthday to have like a good day. It's, you need to go out and do stuff. Um, whether you're seeing family or, whatever is going on, there's so much pressure to have a good birthday. And that pressure ultimately winds up ruining my birthday. And it has every year since I turned 25.
Damn.
Um, yeah, bro. And it's gonna sound crazy because after we talk about it's gonna be like, oh, that it's not a bad day, right?
Hmm.
So for my birthday, didn't do shit. I want to say it was the shittiest birthday that I've had, but it feels very like first world problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Woke up, I was like, oh shit, turned the big 30. But I think it's once you hit a certain age, you realize that nobody gives a shit. It
Yeah.
it just kind of stings a little a little bit. Like I don't know how to describe it because on your birthday you're expecting people to make a big deal of you.
Mm.
But when you're turning 30, it's like you're not special. You know what I mean? So like it stung a lot on my birthday. Like didn't have like extended family come over or anything. There was no cake, no, nothing, man. It was awful. Um and yeah, it just kind of got me thinking about like birthdays and how they really just for me lost all that luster, because when you
Mm,
turn 30, you're closing that chapter on your 20s. In your head, this is supposed to be a big deal, but then it's not, and you're just like, okay, well, it didn't feel real, you know?
yeah, I think I kind of feel the same. Like not only just hitting 30, I think you mentioned 25 is like when you started kind of feeling
Yeah,
that, and I think I felt the same. Like it, I was never like huge on birthday. Like I never like I know people that just love throwing birthday parties. Like they make the whole week about their birthday.
yeah,
Mostly girls, you know, that's usually the people that do it, which I mean, that's fine. I just I can't deal with all that attention, honestly.
yeah,
I always, like even like when I was a teenager and had, it was my birthday and all that. Sure, there was all the family and cousins. I mean, me being Hispanic, I've always had like cousins and all that stuff at
yeah,
my birthday party. Um, so even during like those birthday parties, I was always kind of like when people like came up to me and like, "Hey, happy birthday," and I was like, kind of
mm,
awkwardly like smiling or whatever. Or when they're singing "Happy Birthday" and you don't know what the fuck to do with your hands, if you should clap along, but it's like,
yeah.
do you sing along to your own birthday song? Like, you know,
Yeah, like, the whole thing just feels, like,
it's yeah.
weird.
For me, it's super awkward just because I don't like being the center of attention. I
Yeah,
think that's mainly the main reason why I don't really, not that I don't enjoy it. Don't get me wrong. I love having, you know, people around. I love being in like a family slash friend setting. Like I love, hanging out with all that stuff and having a good time. I just don't necessarily like being like the center of that. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like I don't
yeah,
want that pressure, like you're saying, of having to meet everybody's, like, you okay? You doing good? You got drinks, you got food, you good? Like
yeah.
I don't want all that, you know?
Well, see,
Um,
it's
yeah.
not, like it's not that part, like, I don't know, it's like, the pressure you feel on your birthday
Mhm.
is, like, okay, I woke up and I was like, "Look, I don't wanna do things that we do on a normal day. I want today to be different," and it
Mhm.
just wasn't, man. It was the fact that it was just another day,
Yeah.
nothing changed, and I mean, it really, like, bummed me out, and I don't know, like, I was expecting it to be like, "Dude, you're fucking 30. What's going on? What do you wanna do?" I want the opportunity to be like, "Hey, no, I'm good, like, I'm just chilling today," but it was the fact that time just went on,
Mhm.
like,
Did
it was
people
bad.
know it was your birthday, like, at work or whatever?
Yeah, so, like, I was out sick for my birthday,
Oh, that's right.
but I had people from work sending me messages
Mhm,
and coworkers and stuff, which is, it's fine, and I'm very grateful for that. Like, they were just like, "We wish you were here, blah, blah, blah,"
mhm,
which is cool, but I think what stung the most is, like, my wife, like, she's stay-at-home mom, there's no income there, so I don't really know what I was expecting from her.
mhm.
But, like, in her family, birthdays are not a big deal.
Right.
But in my family, like, for my wife and my daughter, man, I try to do everything, even if we don't have, like, a lot of money, financially, whatever.
Mhm,
Like, for Sam's birthday that just passed in August,
mhm.
I, um, I bought her, like, tree frogs or whatever, and I was like, "Look, like, what do you want? Let me do this for you. Let me clean, let me cook."
Yeah, make it
And
make it a little special, like you were saying, like you were expecting something different. I
yeah.
think we all expect that, and yeah, I guess it's a little bit of a letdown, I guess. Is what
Mhm.
you're saying, where
And
you
that
don't.
and that's
Yeah.
and that's what it was. I mean, it was just a letdown. I still got the same problems I had last year, and I still have
Mm.
the same problems, like, they're not gonna go away because you turn 30 or
Oh
whatever.
yeah.
I think my insurance got cheaper though, which is awesome. Hmm.
I kind of felt similar when I turned 30. I turned 30 in February of this year. And but the fact is that, like, for example, my girlfriend, she loves, like, you know, making presents, or just like creating stuff, something like very creative. She's very creative, so she like loves, like, making like little scavenger hunts and stuff like that, or little, like, clues and shit to find, what the actual birthday present is. And like, so she does like a lot of that.
Yeah.
So, and she's always like, I'm always trying to one up her on gifts, but it's just, I can't compete. She's just way too
Yeah.
good at it. Like, and sometimes I feel bad because like she really gets involved in like making it so that's like really
Oh, I
about
think
me
we
that
lost you, bro.
what
I think we lost you a little bit. You cut out.
what did you hear?
Just you were saying that you can't compete
Yeah, well,
with her level of creativity.
that's basically what when it comes to birthdays, at least.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like this year, like she got me the PS5, and um
God damn.
but not just her, like she got everybody, to pitch in. But
Yeah.
and I kind of got in the mood. I was like, all right, you know what? It's the big, I usually don't celebrate or don't do anything big. I usually just, get together with her and her family, or and me and like my dad and all that stuff, and we do something, like a cookout, go out to
Yeah.
lunch, dinner, something small, nothing big. But as it was 30, I was like, you know what? Let's do a little something. So I think on the weekend after my birthday, I was like, I got, friends and some coworkers together, and we went out to laser tag.
Nice.
And so we did like a game of that. And it's 30 minutes or whatever of, just going running around, shooting each other. And but it was a little different. It was like something, it felt kind of nice because it was like something I would have done when I was a teenager,
Yeah.
going out to laser tag with friends, and in this case, family. Even my dad joined and everything. So it was just nice. It was actually a really nice birthday. Even it was after my birthday, actual birthday, but it was part of the party.
Yeah.
So it was definitely really nice to get, people together and then having that type of activity. And again, I wasn't like the center of attention, because it was like, I wasn't
Yeah. Is
like
it
throwing a party. It was like, hey, for my birthday, let's all go to laser tag and just, and
have
just
fun?
have fun, and
Yeah.
and so yeah, it was nice because I got to celebrate, I got to enjoy it, like a day with like friends and family and all that stuff, where I wasn't like exactly like the center of attention or anything like that. And I still felt, like it was kind of like nostalgic in a bit, in a way, because it was like,
Yeah.
feeling back to like what something you would do when you're a teen or whatever. Um
Yeah.
so it was really
Just
nice.
like that little dose
Yeah,
of childhood.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so it was nice. And yeah, I was lucky enough, and I'm super grateful that, my girlfriend really did, again, she like went all out to this, gave me like several different gifts, and for her it was like a big deal turning 30. For me, it was like, meh, whatever. It's big, it's a big number, but it's like I didn't really want to celebrate and all that stuff. But she made it so that like when I did get all the gifts and all that stuff, I was just like so like emotionally like, oh man, to have somebody
Yeah.
like that
And
cares about you.
and I'll be honest, like, last year for my 29th, Sam went all out.
Mhm.
Like I mean, it was amazing. And like kind of like your 80-year-old grandpa. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was, well, yeah, not
Yeah.
mine, but not
But
my
yeah,
girlfriend's. Yeah.
all I really want is to be around
Oh
family,
yeah.
and that's all I wanted. I wanted to be around my wife and my daughter. And it was just the fact that like we had nothing going on, just a very, very solemn day. And I was just like, man, like this kind of sucks. 7 o'clock hit, nothing happened. And I'm
Mm,
just like, well, the day's over.
mm,
It is what it is, and we just moved on. And then it's always the day after my birthday. Once that pressure is gone, that's when it starts to pick up a little bit. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, oh, okay, not so bad. But man, the day of it's just so much where I just want like I like it, I don't know. I think it's one of those where you realize because like you're my best friend. You live all the way in Spain. You can't, you're not coming here. You know
Right.
what I mean? Not yet, at least. But
Hmm.
um, it was the realization that like my childhood is really like
Oh yeah,
over
that's a big one.
because I don't have friends coming over. I don't have all this like I have a full on family and they're all adults now. Whatever,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
just kind of realizing that like damn, that little dose of childhood that you get is just kind of over with.
Mm.
And you're 30, you still have bills, you still have a job, you need to go.
It sucks. I think. I mean, I'm not. At least we get older. You know. At
Yeah,
least we.
exactly.
I'm thankful that I can uh count another year, add another year onto to my life here, for sure. But it does suck to just realize that little by little, you look back and you're like, "Fuck, man, I'm 30 now. The fuck
Yeah.
happened?" And you think like, of course I've done things, I've accomplished things. But at certain points, I would be kind of scared of hitting 30 just because I was like, I haven't like maybe because when I was like, I don't know, 18 or whatever, I had in mind, I was like, all right, by the time I'm 30, I'm gonna do this.
Yep.
And that checklist, I might have like two things
Yeah.
checked off. And then of course I've done other things that weren't on that list, but I kind of feel like I haven't met my I guess my expectations of what I had in mind when I was that young. Um
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people go through that, I'm sure. Um
Yeah.
where like you try to set all these goals when you're like a teenager or whatever, or you just turn into an adult or whatever, and then you don't quite meet those expectations, and then it's like a bummer because then it's oh, I'm 30 and I haven't done this, like don't have a house, I don't have um and so it kind of sucks, especially like from because I think, well, you and I both growing up in the States, like um our parents and movies and TV series and all that kind of like ingrained that kind of goal, that perfect, quote unquote perfect, like life goal, you know,
Yeah.
like going to college, getting married, and having buying a house, having kids or whatever. And I didn't meet any of that. Like I didn't do any of that. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like, I think that where that deception, that yeah, like where you kind of feel like disappointed in yourself, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
really
for
your
me,
fault, but you kind of do feel, yeah.
yeah. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think for me, I didn't go through that as far as
Mm.
like, man, I'm 30, and I have been there. I hit that when I was like 25,
Oh
26
no,
or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
something.
I've hit that too. Like I'm not saying just when I hit 30. Like I've been like
Yeah.
after, I think, yeah, around 24, 25. That's when I started like, kind of.
Yeah. But for me, it was one of those things where, it's like, okay, I'm 30, and the biggest realization is just like I remember being in high school, in college,
Mm,
right? Like when your birthday hit, everybody was on Facebook,
right.
and you'd get like hundreds of comments. And every year it went from like 340 to 200
Yeah, just
to
kept going
50.
down. Yeah.
And I think I had like 9 people this
Well,
year. And I
mainly
don't
because nobody's on fucking Facebook. But yes.
exactly. And then there's also like there's so many different like changes going on. Like there's a lot of people that I left behind that
Oh,
I
for
had to
sure. Yeah.
in order to get, to get better or whatever. And I shouldn't be seeking that attention. I don't know why I seek that attention. But I'm pretty sure it just has to do with the amount of pressure that's on your birthday. Like
Yeah.
you want people to know and you want people to acknowledge your existence and you are God's gift to the world.
Mm,
And then you hit that realization of like, you're fucking not.
yep.
you
Some of the
are
guys,
just,
yeah, but
yeah. And then, I don't know. It was a tough realization, but at the end of the day, like, I'm over it. I just really wanted to kind of get that out there where it's like,
mhm,
on your birthday, it's really up to you to make that day what you want it to be about, right? Like, if you're one of those people that's like, birthday, no big deal, you push it off, and then the day of it hits. Well, you pushed it off, all week. You acted like your birthday didn't matter.
mhm.
All this stuff. The day of, it should come to no surprise that it's not that big a deal to anybody else because you didn't make it a big deal. So if you want people to make it a big deal, you got to make a big deal about it. If you want it low key, you got to be low key about it.
And I think
And
also, yeah, go ahead, finish that.
no, I mean that's the gist of it. You just have to it's up to you for your birthday.
Mhm.
Nobody else.
Yeah, obviously, yes, of course. You can't just put all those like expectations, all those desires that you might have uh around your birthday. You can't put that on somebody else's shoulders.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can't
Yeah, and I
expect
had
that out of people, um, and then be surprised when it doesn't happen. Because I mean, you
yeah.
can't just uh, and I think it does kind of change as you get older. I guess it does kind of change of what you end up expecting. Like now, I mean, I was mentioning how you feel kind of disappointed around 20 something or whatever. I felt not disappointed. I guess that's not just not, I guess not being able to meet all those or goals and objectives and stuff that you had. And that kind
Yeah.
of, it kind of bums you out a little bit, but then you kind of start changing that perspective, and then start making more realistic goals. I think that's one of the biggest changes I made when I like hit 25 or so. It started like really just changing the way, like, yeah, just setting more realistic goals,
Yeah.
and realizing, okay, so it's not a movie, it's not like how our parents did or whatever, or what we're shown, what's the perfect life or whatever. Economy has completely changed from 30 years ago or whatever. It's completely different setting. So obviously
Yeah.
I can't have all those things that they told me I should have, because it's just completely different,
Yeah.
and
And then
realizing that is big.
and I think on top of that is just understanding that nobody is where they want to be.
Oh yeah.
I think there are very few people on this planet that are just like, no, this is cool. I'm done. And if you are one of those people like that, that's okay. Nobody's knocking you. But the type of person I am,
Hmm.
like, if I'm not growing, I'm upset.
Yeah.
I have
Same.
to be, there has to be progression
Same.
in my everyday life. I'm not content. I could be a billionaire and still not be content.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, after you make a certain amount of money, money is just whatever. It's not the big thing. It's who are you spending time with? Who are you
Yeah.
hanging out with? What are you doing with your time? And that's one thing for me that I started working on with myself is really just okay. Nobody is where they want to be, but I still have to progress, right?
Yeah.
Like I have friends that are all my age. Two of them still live with their parents.
Hmm.
One of them is, he's fairly successful. He's doing his thing, making money. They're like, I'm not behind. And I think realizing that helps out a lot. And if you do feel like you're behind, there's always one, there's always going to be somebody that's doing better than you.
Hmm.
And then two, there's always people that are going to be doing worse than you. You
Oh yeah.
can't worry about any of them. You have to just focus on you and whatever it is that you got going
Yeah.
on,
I
you
think
know?
I think to some extent, social media has made that worse.
Mhm.
Where like you inevitably you compare yourself to whatever you see on social media,
Yeah.
um, be it physically, which we talked about a few times in certain episodes, like comparing yourself physically and fitness level or whatever. You see whatever other influencers and all that stuff are doing, and so obviously you compare yourself and you're like, oh, I'm not there, and I feel like shit, blah blah blah. But then also financially, and I guess in terms of success, quote unquote,
Yeah.
And so obviously you see all that, and you can't help but compare yourself. And then I mean, it's I try not to. I don't really like scroll through Instagram and just like see people like random posts and stuff like that. I don't really do that. Um,
Hmm.
I do go on like TikTok and stuff like that, but I mainly just see like some music stuff or some like comedy stuff.
Yeah.
So I I stay away from like the fitness influencers or influencers in general, and compare myself to all that, because I know it's
It's
horrible
not real.
if you get into that. Yeah, first of all, it's not real. Like what they're posting is just kind of, it's all glamored up and whatever.
Yeah.
um but second of all, even if you do know that, even if you know that it's not real, you still can't help but compare yourself to that.
Right.
So it kind of sucks.
100%.
And I do have some friends that are back. I think you remember them. You remember Mao and George?
I do. I
I
do.
mean, Mao dated your sister, so you should.
Fuck you. That did happen. These are facts, but yeah.
They're living in, I think, in LA or Vegas. I don't know. One of
Hmm.
those. Or they have a house in both. I don't know. And so like I have them on Instagram and they post all the time. They're always like going around like, fancy cars and going out to fancy restaurants, and they've got money and they're doing this and that. So very, successful in terms of money,
Yeah.
clearly. And they show it off, or mainly one of them shows it off. So I see that. At first I was like, damn, man, like if I could have, stayed and maybe gone out, because at one point, I don't know if you know this, but I was in a band with them, like a
Yeah.
rock band.
Of
I don't know
course.
if you remember.
Black Rose Drive or something like
Black
that.
Rose Drive,
BRD.
yeah. And
Yep.
I remember, I think it was like junior year.
Yeah. This is one of your last years here.
Well, I mean, I finished high school there, so I was there.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it was junior year. They were like, "Hey, man, we're going to we're going to drop out," because they dropped out of high school, and we're going to go to Vegas. Or no, yeah, we're going to go to Vegas and start this whole thing. The Black Rose, the band, like try to get it, uh, to make something out of it. And I was like, I'm not just going to drop out of high school and just go there. I mean, I like being in the band. I like playing music or whatever, but it wasn't like my dream. You know what I'm saying? It was
Yeah.
mainly their thing. And I was like, look, man, that's not for me. My parents had just split up. I was like, I'm not, going to leave my mom here with my brother alone. And I don't know, I didn't want to do that. And so they
Yeah.
went out there, and sure enough, they started, being a little successful with the band and all that stuff. Eventually, that all kind of just they split up with the other band members and all that, but they're brothers, so they obviously
Yeah.
did split up. But they started getting into other stuff, right? And I was like, damn. At one point, I was like, fuck, man, if I would have gone with them, maybe I could have, made a living out there and done something, for myself. And maybe if it wasn't, maybe at first it was just the band, and
Yeah.
eventually maybe it didn't turn out well, like it eventually didn't. Um, and then, but I could have made something else, maybe I could have gone into acting, or I could have gone into this or that or whatever. So at
Yeah.
some point, I was like, man, I kind of regret not doing that. But then I started getting older, and again, going back to like how you start changing your perspective and all that, and you start realizing like, what really matters. Um,
Yeah.
and it's not really about the money and all that, which helps
Mm.
obviously, but you start realizing that it's really about just, being happy, being grateful for what you do have and what you have accomplished. Um,
I think it's also like doing what you want to do, right? Like you had mentioned, it
mhm.
was at the time when they had invited you. Like I remember, man, you guys were making music,
Yeah.
and it was a very big deal. But if that at the time isn't what was going to make you happy, I think what we do is we look at, well, this could have been different,
Yeah.
and is different always better? You
Yeah.
never know what could have happened. You could have went out there and got shot up. You have no idea. But
Probably.
for me, it's more about just like, am I doing what I want to be doing?
Mm.
And right now, yeah, I'm cool. I'm paying my bills on time. I'm making sure things are lining up. Like it's all about a setup, you know?
Yeah.
And then in my 30s, that's really what I'm going to be working on. Like this decade is all about um, building for my retirement. You know what I mean? I want to build for an early retirement. I don't want to retire at 60. I want to retire, 45, 50 or whatever. I want to retire early. Um, so I spent all of my 20s just grinding, saying, hey, no, I'm not going to go to the parties. I left a lot of friends behind. Probably left some really good experiences behind, but it was all to build up for my 30s
Hmm.
because now I have all that experience. I have all that knowledge and everything that I built within my 20s. Now I'm going to use it in my 30s. Like we're doing a podcast, man.
Yeah,
Like, there could be a chance that this blows up, could be a chance that it doesn't, but it's okay because I'm doing what I want to do, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah.
and and that's probably like the biggest thing is just as long as you're doing what you want to be doing.
Hmm.
And then now I'm set up to where financially I'm okay. um I have shelter, I have food, I have all this, I have all that. And now it's like, okay, now we're going to build on top of what I have. The grind is over. I'm okay everywhere else in every aspect of my life. Now it's time to build. So now we're going to get a house, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that. And then I'm just going to go where my heart wants to go because I have the career. I have. Is it the career that I dreamt of? No, but I'm able to support a family and I'm able to do the things that I want to do and not feel like I'm not successful. I guess I don't know. Success is really just based on, are you doing what you want to do and are you still chasing your
Exactly. Yeah.
happiness?
I would get into that.
Yeah,
Like success
yeah,
is so relative to what you're living. Like, I guess when you think about success and what you've lived through, and then that's how you create your own success or your requirements for success. So I
yeah,
think once you adjust your requirements for success and how you feel and all that, that's big because then it's not like you're moving the goalpost closer to you, like saying you're cheating, like, oh well, if
yeah.
success for me is just getting up out of bed and going to work. Okay, yeah,
That's a start. That's
yeah,
a start.
exactly. It's not saying like, oh, I'm just making all these meaningless things be the success. um that might be it for some people. That seriously,
Yeah,
like that, there's some people that are in the state where something as simple as getting out of bed, that's success. And if that's the case, more power to you. Make sure you
yeah,
keep readjusting what success means once you meet those things, obviously. But if you do have to start that small, go for it. But I think what I
yeah.
and a lot of people probably did this too, like, when you're in high school or whatever, and you in school, that all the teachers and all that, the counselors and all that, they tell you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to make sure you go to college, you got to make sure you get a job, and you do like a lot
You
of
don't have to
people
do
just,
any of that shit.
yeah, like a lot of people just did stuff that they like, the norm, but it's not what they wanted to do. So obviously, when they're burnt out and just depressed and anxious and all that, and they don't know why, it's like, because, bro, you're doing something you never wanted to do. You're working
Yeah,
in a corporate job in an office or whatever, 9 to 5. Okay, if that's what you wanted to do, then okay. But most people don't,
yeah.
and that's
Most
why it's
people want
more
to
fun to have.
experience life.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, going out. I think one of the main reasons I changed my perspective is, coming here. Leaving that such, I guess, that pressure of the American society, which has its good sides, obviously, but there was a lot of pressure for like society in America, where it just kind of like, you feel like you're a failure if you don't meet those their requirements for success. Where when I came here, it was like completely different, way more laid back in the sense of like where you need to be at certain ages and all that stuff. uh,
we'll see. What I think is it's less about where you are geographically and more about where you are mentally, right? Like
oh yeah.
because in America, you have all different. stages, but it's now that we are the grown-ups,
Mhm.
everything has changed drastically. Everything you're thinking and feeling right now is how everybody here is thinking and feeling now because we are the grown-ups. Back then, you were buying houses for 80 grand. If you made 60,000 a year, you're buying a 4-bedroom house
Mhm.
and you're living the dream. So of course they thought, yeah, this is easy, but nobody knew what was going to happen 20 years down the road.
Yeah.
So instead of feeling like failures, a lot of us just feel like we got fucking duped because you had mentioned that, your counselor, oh, you guys got to go to college, you got to
Yeah.
do this. You're doing a whole bunch of shit you don't want to do. And on top of that, you're going to be, 50 grand in debt
Mhm.
minimum for school.
Yeah.
And we were led improperly, I think. And the thing is now that we're grown-ups, we realize that we've been led improperly and now we're doing something about it.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. Like, I raised my daughter and how as long as she wants to do the thing, we'll do it. If you don't want to do it, it's okay.
Yeah.
We'll move on to something else or whatever.
Yeah.
But
That's big.
yes, yeah.
Mm.
And it's just about being led properly and understanding that
Which I think
this is what you're taking
I
on.
think it's not the adults at the time's fault.
Oh, it 100% is.
I mean,
Generation X.
yes, no, obviously it's their fault, but I don't know to what extent they actually knew what they were getting us into, because obviously our generation, I guess millennial towards Gen Z-ish, but not, I mean, mostly millennial. Gen Z is a little bit, younger, and so they didn't live through a lot of what we lived. Like all that pressure that we're talking about, that's what we lived through, and we not late 90s, early 90s. So
Yeah.
that's when a lot of the Gen X were having kids and whatever, and they're like, all right, well, this is how we did it, so they got to do
Yeah.
it too.
And
So
it
that's what
was
I'm
a
saying.
totally different
Yeah,
economy. It was just totally different. Like where,
completely.
In the 80s, they're doing coke at fucking snow cabins and, trailer parks and just all this shit.
Mhm.
And you try to carry that into the new modern world with technology. Like their whole view was everything without technology.
Right.
Like how many times did you hear your teacher say you'll never have a calculator in your pocket? And here we are, where I got not only a calculator, but I have everything in my pocket. And it's just like, it's one of those things where we just weren't led properly by that previous generation. I do appreciate a lot of things that they bring, like, not really giving a fuck.
Mhm.
I like that about that generation where it's like, it doesn't matter how these people see you, get out there and go get it done.
Yeah, the work ethic. Work ethic
Yeah.
wise, I think it's great. I think we definitely came out
But the
on
thing
winning side,
is,
and the winning end on that side. But that, yeah,
well, there's a big thing there where it's, nobody gives a fuck, get it done type of thing. What that basically does to our entire generation is tell us that progression isn't like the most important. It's shut up and get it done. And what that did for our economy and everything else that's going on is it created a lot of people that just kind of settled flat into what they were doing. And yeah, now that we're the grown-ups, you're seeing job abandonment, you're seeing companies go through the ringer with staffing because we're all like, hey, fuck this. This is no progression, this is no way to live. We need to move up the chain. We need like it's not okay to be at this bottom level. We need to move forward. Whereas the previous generation is saying, hey, the bottom level is necessary. They have to be there. If they're not there, whatever. Like it's just not, there's no progression there. It's shut up, get it done. Whereas our generation is more like, hey, shut up, get it done, and move up. You need to progress. You need to move forward. You cannot stay stagnant.
yeah,
Do not be complacent and move forward. And I think that's where a lot of like the pressure comes from, is because we're all trying to progress while we have our senior leaders basically just telling us, don't worry about that, just stay where you're at.
yeah.
I
think the main, I think the earlier generations have that like mindset of grind and securing a job, and that's it. and just suck it
Yeah,
up
and just
and
being
get
okay.
through it and whatever. You're working 9 to 5 and you have a horrible like mental health and no balance in your like work and just enjoying life in general. Suck it up. That's
Yep.
which, like I said, I can't really completely 100% blame them because then their parents were also, at some point they were kids as well and they were taught that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, obviously,
Yeah.
if you have generations that were like in a war and then they come back and they teach them, be grateful for what you got. If you got this job and it sucks, be grateful for it and just keep pushing. So obviously,
Yeah.
when they grow up and they have kids, they're going to have that same mindset. And luckily enough, they had that mindset. And then the economy was just in the right spot, right moment where like that actually, that work ethic, that grind or whatever actually, made them be successful or not successful, but like, yeah, have, be able to buy a house or whatever. But
Yeah.
obviously that setting, that environment changed. And so when, those kids grew up, the new kids grew up, the Gen X, I guess, and they were taught the same. So they were like, all right, let's do this, do that. They didn't, it doesn't work for us, for the millennial generation.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, I don't know how it's going to work for the Gen Z generation. I don't want to get into like this whole like generational debate, but we're
Yeah.
kind of, our generation is kind of in the worst spot,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Because
we're coming from generations of, a certain mindset for a certain economy, which does not exist anymore. And it's tough. It's really
Mhm.
tough to
And
adapt to
then
that.
yeah, and then understanding that we have the power to force changes, right? Like I think about, my boss,
Mhm,
and like one of the best examples I can give, okay, my boss, he was a store manager. He, when I want to move up, obviously, right?
mhm,
And he has a mindset of, it took me 20 years to get to where I am.
mm,
What makes you think you can move up faster than I did? You see what I'm saying? And he's like, I just did my job every day and now I'm here.
mhm,
Whereas I'm like, oh, fuck no. Like that sounds like they got 20 years of free labor from you, 20 years of experience and all this other stuff without any pressure to pay you more money to move you where you need to be.
yeah,
I'm not going through that. You're not going to catch me doing any job for 20 years. I'm going to be, every year there needs to be progression. And I think that's why I've been going through so much love hate with my company right now, because there's no, like, I haven't felt that progression yet. This will be the first year where there is no progression. And I'm like, okay, this is a problem. And I don't know how to get the senior leader to understand
mm,
that this is a problem. His mindset is a huge issue because it doesn't apply to the everyday workforce.
yeah,
You're still stuck in a generation where you just do the shitty thing until you get lucky enough to move up. It's not about luck. It's, is this person skilled? Can this person do the job?
mhm,
If yes, check the box and send them up, because you can do a job and quite frankly, if you're doing a job for 20 years and you haven't gotten moved up, you're the problem.
yeah.
Like it should not
But
take you 20
a lot
years
of
to get.
people live like that for
Yeah.
I want to say like at least 2 generations.
Yeah, like if you're I'm not doing it. I'm just not. I
No,
have to move up, and then as soon as I sense zero progression, I'm already moving on.
mhm,
And I'm gonna have to have this talk with my boss in February, because it'll mark a 1 year type of deal.
mhm,
And I'm just gonna let him know, like, hey, if there is no progression, I'm not waiting 20 years. I'm not even gonna wait 5 years. Um, where is my career path taking me?
mhm,
And if it's not where I want it to be, I'm moving on. I have to,
yeah, no, for sure.
and then that's where they get into that whole, oh, there's no loyalty in the workforce anymore. Well, no, it's business. This is a fucking business. I am a number, and so are you.
Which
I
they
could leave
built. Like, I
today.
mean, the current, the modern economy is built like that. And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think we do have something going for us. And it's the fact that like we were mentioning, we have that work ethic. So we're not scared of the grind, as
Yeah.
long as the grind is not
Worth
constantly,
it.
but changing enough to that we don't get, stuck in a
Yeah.
certain spot, and like you're saying, like I'm not going to be working the same, like same pay, same whatever for 20 years. It's not going to happen.
Mm-mm.
So I think we're right in that case. We did, like, I guess there's that benefit of having that mindset, but in this economy, which has, um, it requires that type of mindset to progress. And I don't know if it has to do with the fact that like technology now is like so ever changing and like it changes so
Yeah.
quickly that the fact that we need to see the progress and see that we're like actually moving somewhere, if that's just like a reflection of like how, how everything's changing so fast, like in
Yeah.
just everywhere. And I think that might be it, like where like we grew up without cell phones, and we
Yeah.
had to quickly adapt to having cell phones.
Yep.
And like not even like smartphones, I'm talking just like, flip
Yeah.
phones and shit, and then quickly adapt to having smartphones, and
Yep.
quickly adapt to this and that. Whereas the like the earlier generations, they're still kind of, bamboozled by,
Yeah, dude, by email.
yeah, they're like, what?
Like I have to walk my boss through how to, the new Outlook or whatever, and I'm walking him through it, and I'm like, dude, and you're gonna sit here and tell me, that I can't do your job?
Yeah.
I could do my job with my I could do your job with my eyes closed. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And it's just like it's so dumbfounding because you have certain paths of progression blocked by older generations that have a skewed view of
Mm.
what is going on. Now,
Yeah.
not all of them,
No,
you
obviously
know,
not. Obviously.
not yeah, it's I mean, for me, it's just this one leader that I have, and he's like standing in the way of that progression.
Hmm.
But it's people like that that ultimately will run down either a company, they'll run down whatever's going on because they're too afraid to let, what is it called? Cognitive dissonance,
Yeah.
where you have trouble accepting what's true because you're too scared to let go of what you thought was.
Mm.
And it's like people like that just drive me insane, man.
I think we're like the underdog of generations. I think we
Hmm.
were like, kind of put down by society, or this, not put down, but like they're trying to put us through the grind, they being society, the system, whatever.
Yep. Yep.
Um, and then we had to, because of like how, the environment and technology and all that has changed so quickly, we managed to adapt to all these changes so quickly, and so effectively, that now we might be on the brink of like
Upswing.
actually, making a change, like you were saying earlier,
Yeah.
and
And
actually
it's
coming up on
coming.
top.
Like our generation is going to be controlling politics very soon.
Yeah.
Like I'll be voting this year. Like I'll be doing a lot of different stuff that I've never done
Hmm.
because I'm like, oh, this shit's stupid. It doesn't matter. But now it's like, hey, this does matter.
Yeah.
And just trying to force all these changes into our world to have this country run how we need it to run in order for that progression, because we don't want our kids locked in a system that keeps them down. We
Hmm.
want our kids to grow up and be more successful
Yeah.
than us.
But that's the
And
thing, like the next like the one after us, I guess the Gen Z. I don't, is there a Y in there? No.
is I'm sure there's one generation after.
There's a bit of an overlap though, because like I think millennial the
Yeah.
millennial generation, I think, ends in like 96, 97, something like that. But the Gen Zers are like 2000 something. I don't know. There's a bit of an overlap where
Yeah.
there's some Gen Zers that are older, which are from like the late 90s. But what I'm trying to say is like the new generation, like your kid, for example, or you
Hmm.
know, kids that are like around that age that grew up with the current technology,
Yep.
that it's going to be interesting to see how they grow up, like in terms of like, you know, work ethic and morals and all that stuff. It's going to be interesting because they live in we currently we all live, but they're growing up with it where it's like everything's so immediate, so instant, so you know,
Well,
it's kind
well,
of
yeah.
like I don't know how
I
you as a
think
dad, like how do you see that with your kid, like how your daughter like growing up, and I know she's like 5, but like what
so.
have
It's
you
going to
seen?
continue. It's going to continue the trend of convenience, but it's going to be a level of convenience that is just so just off the walls, even for us, right? Like, you our version of convenience is like, damn, bro, I can get on Amazon and order, whatever I want and have it shipped straight to my house,
Mhm.
or, I can pull out a smartphone and FaceTime and keep that. Their level of convenience is going to be so much more advanced than what
Mm.
we've even seen. And I think they're going to continue that trend, and they're going to be all about what makes life easier, right? Um, and I'm trying to think of what I mean by that exactly, like
Are you
with a
saying that
specific
like
example.
I don't know if I'm reading you right, but is it gonna be like, are you saying that it's gonna be like I want to say lazier. I know that's gonna, you know, bother some
I
people.
would I wouldn't say
Not
I wouldn't say lazier,
no.
because it's just in our eyes it might be. You know what I mean? I remember when texting
Hmm.
like became ultimately just completely accessible,
Hmm.
and everybody would, or like, I know you and I were like, why the fuck would we text? I'll just call you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let me just call. And now
Now I
texting is like
hate
a huge
calling.
part of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and exactly. And I think it's going to be like to those levels where we're like, that's lazy, just
Mm,
text it, just call, right? And but for them, it's going to be even more so.
mm.
But I think we might perceive it as lazy, whereas they're going to perceive it as like, no, this is just more efficient. I think living life in a Gen Zers world is going to be all about convenience and ensuring that life is as easy as it could be. So, what do I mean by that?
Yeah.
It's You're not going to have to break your fucking neck to get a house
Mm,
in a Gen Zers world. Like, one, because millennials will be the older generation, we'll be the ones like, hey, okay, we're controlling politics, blah, 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 blah. But Gen Zers are going to be the ones forcing the changes. And it's going to be, hey, rent, this is insane. Credit, I think credit is going to go away in America.
mm.
Um, Under millennial, I think millennials are going to be the ones to disassemble all the credit system that was built.
Could be.
Um, and I think things are going to be just like a little bit easier, but what they say is, hard times create strong people create easier
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And these easier times that are coming are going to create harder times, and I think they'll see another world war in their generation. We won't see it in ours.
It's cyclical for sure. Um, yeah, it's definitely something cyclical. We see this in history. I mean, history does repeat itself, and I think you're right about like how, yeah, we might be struggling. I mean, I'm not comparing it or even trying to compare it to like, you know, going through a world war. You know
Yeah.
how our, I guess, grandparents, no,
Great
great
grandparents.
grandparents. Yeah, I'm still thinking that the 1970s are 30 years ago. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like our I'm not comparing it to that because that kind of struggle is way different than what we're living through.
Yeah.
But in a sense, we are going through some sort of societal war,
Yeah.
I guess you could say. So it's not physical. Thank God, you know, there's no like, well, there's some casualties, but not to that level. But it is some sort of like war. And like you said, there might be some drastic changes, especially in the States, to how economy works, like you're saying, like credit or just
Yep.
everything being a lot more convenient. I do think though, and you pointed it out as well, that it's going to lead to, you know, the next generations having it so easy, it's so convenient that it's just going to repeat itself. It's going to happen.
Yep.
Have you heard about the blocks, the history blocks?
You might have to
Where like
elaborate.
history is separated into different like eras, and then into like 4 different blocks of like 20 years, so like a generation.
Yeah.
History blocks. Let me look this up so I don't like completely talk out of my ass, and which I normally do. History blocks,
Good to know.
I think it's called. But basically, it's like, turnings. They're called turnings.
Yeah, kind of like a turning point.
Yeah, but like they're separated into like I gotta find this so I don't know, like I don't like completely butcher this, because it's really interesting, and you look at it like throughout the last 100 years, and you see this like it's 80-year cycles, right?
Yeah.
It's turning, and it's divided into 20-year blocks, so 4. And so you have like the moment of like at the end of the block of the whatever the cycle is it's called the crisis, and we're
Yep.
in that moment.
Yeah, because the economy is fucking tits up, and you know there's just so much going on right now. It's gonna force change, probably for the better, some for the worse, but it's like one of those things where like we're like how do I explain it? We're adults. We don't have to deal with certain shit. You know what I mean? We have the power to make certain changes so that we don't have to deal with it. This is going to be like the shittiest example, but like when people were getting sick and dying of the fucking flu, or you know the common cold killing people, there was a turning point there where it was killing so many people. They're like, hey, you know, let's just make medicine. Let's make an antibiotic that treats this. Let's take penicillin and let's treat this. It's such a significant problem. Let's throw our resources at creating antibiotics that are going to keep our people alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go further down the line, and it's every time there's a significant problem, there is a significant solution. But the problem in America is everybody is so gridlocked because the credit system has fucked everyone.
Yeah.
And you know, I promise you that's such a problem right now that eventually it's probably going to get disassembled and replaced with something new to tell if people are, you know, paying their bills or whatever, you know, and not just financially ignorant.
Yeah. No, I think, and in fact, like the whole like the history block thing, like what I just so I can actually, you know, reference it and correctly and not completely butcher it. There's this thing where it compares it to an earlier one. For example, 1781 Revolutionary War ends, and so you get into a high, right?
Mm-hmm.
You get into a period of high. Then there's an awakening 20 years after that. Then there's unraveling, and then you get into a crisis, which in this case, the crisis is the Civil War starts. Okay?
Yeah.
This isn't just mostly in America, obviously in American history. And then to a more recent one, or where our history block is, it's so 1945, World War II victory. We're in a high for around 20 years. Right. So that's where you got the boomers, and they're called the prophets. So during this high, you get the prophets, the prophet of this era. 1964 is an awakening. So you got Gen X ish, and they're called the nomads.
Yep.
Then you get into like the 80s, 1984 ish, and you got the unraveling, and that's when millennials start, and they're called the heroes.
Fuck yeah.
Boy. And then around 2008, crisis, which kind of lines up because, you know,
stock market
yeah,
crash and everything.
and that's Gen Z, and they're called the artist, and that's going to go on for another 20 years. So from 2008 to 2028, that's the next block, which means that this we're in the crisis block, or the crisis turning, the fourth turning, and that's when shit just something happens, and we're in that
But
block.
see, yeah, but see, I want to know, like, I gotta know what's next, because if
Well, then we're
I
gonna
don't know.
go back into a high. We're gonna go back into a point of there's something's gonna happen, right? That
Mhm.
is gonna lead us into some sort of high. But to get to that high point, that high turning, something really like critical is gonna have to happen.
Yeah,
And
and
we don't really.
just
I mean, if we think about it,
it's
how many stuff have happened in the last 20 years, dude?
so much. Oh my God,
Like
so
so
much.
much. Just I mean, not even the last 3 years. COVID
Yeah,
and wars, like war with Russia and Ukraine. Now you got Palestine and Israel,
yeah,
and all
yeah,
this going on, and just in the last couple years. And then I mean, if we start like really getting into it, in the last 20 years has been crazy.
yeah, dude. I mean, I don't know. It makes me excited for the future. I'll say that.
No, for sure. And
Like,
luckily we'll be here, hopefully.
yeah, I just hope I'm around to see credit go away so I can get a house for $1 or something. I don't know.
Me too.
Because yeah, it's just been it's been such a roller coaster ride. And if you really think about that, okay, we're 30,
Hmm.
right? We have lived through so many just life altering events
Mm-hmm.
that I'm curious to see what I don't know. I'm curious to see like where we're going and what molds are we gonna break, and what uh, cyclical nature of our just existence are we going to break?
Yeah.
Because what if we go through the crisis block and it just extends for another 20 years? What if we are the
Yeah.
ones that break that, or if we truly are the heroes, right? What are we gonna do to fix everything, and are we really capable of fixing what needs to be fixed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting
So
for sure. And I think, I mean, we're kind of just tying it all back to how we started with the whole birthday thing. And I think it's like we
yeah.
mentioned earlier, like it's just I'm grateful that I can keep adding years
Yep.
onto to my life, and my experiences get a little richer, and with time perspective change and all that. And I really think it's important to reach those points in your life where you do have to reevaluate, readjust your your requirements for success, those to tick those check boxes that really matter, but always keeping in mind that you're what you're doing today could prepare future generations, so that we don't make the same mistakes that our uh forefathers made, where like Gen
Yeah.
X, and how they led us into this current situation. I think, and I think it's an aptly named generation, the hero, in this
Yeah.
turning, because I think in some way we do have to think of ourselves as heroes. And and I actually I didn't even think about it, but like earlier on I said that we are like the underdog uh
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think that we have the power to kind of pull ourselves together and make it so that it's much better, so that we get into that high turning, and
Yeah.
we can actually enjoy whatever time we have with our family and all that,
Yeah.
and celebrate those 80-year-old birthdays, as just
Yeah.
a family, and not have to worry about making ends meet and all this and all that. And
Yeah. And just make life easier,
yeah, but
Like, it
not too
doesn't need to
easy, because
be
then it's gonna be shitty.
keep them people down so we can stay up, all right?
Yeah, keep that
So,
leash tight enough, or that collar
to
tight enough.
close out,
Mm,
of course I asked my questions and whatnot. We talked about blocks and stuff like that. I live my life in blocks. myself, right?
Like an apartment block or
Yeah, there you go. No. So I don't know your philosophy and stuff. You know, or actually I do rather, but my question is, and the only reason I'm asking this is because I want to answer it myself. So sorry. But
wow. Okay.
I know. So you're 30, you're gonna be 31 soon.
Yes.
You entered a new block in your life. Okay.
Mm.
What's your game plan?
That's good. I didn't think about having internal blocks within one's life. You're right.
Oh yes, man. Oh yes.
Mm. So I don't know. Did I just come off the high and now I'm in the next block, which is the awakening?
It
Am
could
I
be.
the Gen X of my life?
You very well could be.
Oh.
Do you have a game plan? Do you know
Well, I
like
think we've briefly touched on this in past episodes as well, where we kind of do have some objectives set out, and I think again mentioning what I was mentioning earlier about changing your perspective and changing your success your requirements for success adequately enough so that you can actually meet them. And I think I mean my game plan now is to, well, first of all, in the next maybe 2 to 3 years ish, maybe earlier than that, sooner than that, uh, change careers or change my current job at least. I don't want to. I've been here for 4 years, and I kind of want to make sure that I have been progressing internally, but I do want to see what else is out there.
uh-huh.
That will be fun, and then also possibly buying a house or an apartment or something. Here in Europe, or at least in Spain, it's mostly apartments. There's not a lot of like actual like single family houses. It's mostly apartments.
Gotcha.
Um, and then eventually starting a family for sure. At least in the
Love it.
next 5 years or so. So that's what I have for the next 5 years. Possibly changing careers and or just a job, like same sector, same industry, but just changing, to a different company or whatever. Buying a house or an apartment or whatever, and starting a family. That's my 5 year plan.
I love it. I
Both
love it.
Rico.
Mine is it's
Retiring.
very yeah, right. It's very similar. So in this 10-year block, whether it's the awakening, hopefully I pray to God it's not the unraveling. Um but for me, I'm 30. By the end of 2024, I'm going to be in a house.
Hmm.
I need to be in a house.
Hmm.
I already have a family. I plan to welcome at least one or two more kids.
Ooh.
By the time I'm 35, and then by the time I'm 40, to end my block, I want to be working for myself. I
Mm.
want to have my own business. I want to have my own things and run my own stuff. So I'm going to make as much money as I possibly can for my company. I'm going to use that money to start my own business. As far as what business, not there yet. I'll figure it out. Hopefully it's this podcast. We don't know,
Mm.
right? We have no idea where this podcast is going to take us in the years to come. But um definitely
Ooh,
just definitely progression for sure.
yeah, actually, yeah, I want to add that. I only like talked about the next 5 years. So after
Yeah.
that, that career change could possibly lead into I've always also wanted to, have my own business. And that could actually be an episode that we talk about like, business and all that. And like not I know we talked about corporate life and all that, but like having your own business or all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That could be something we
Entrepreneurship.
yeah, exactly. We could touch on that eventually. But yeah, I think to end it, it's all about, making success work for you and not
Yep.
feeling ashamed or disappointed or anything in making smaller goals and smaller objectives, because at the end of the day, that's what gets you to the finish line. of where we want to go. So step by step, day by day, look at me. My name is
Gay. Absolutely. Well, no, man. I mean, this is definitely interesting. We went from birthday blues to, you know, the future and generational gaps and all that other stuff. I mean, I'm very excited for the future. I can't wait.
Yeah, man.
But I do want to thank you. Yeah, go Heroes. Let's be heroes. What kind of hero are you gonna be? You know,
be your hero, baby.
That's trademarked.
All right, damn it.
Demonetized right now.
I wish we could get monetized. All right, guys. Well,
all right.
We'll see you in the next episode of Come On Over.
All righty. Peace.
Bye-bye.